So I'm back at working on my table. I did a bit of this work yesterday. One of the things that I wanted to show was what this geopolymer looks like when when it's fully mixed up. I'm going to kind of find some kind of a mixing stick. All right, well, this will work for the moment. All right, so this is the geopolymer mortar. And I did actually make it quite a bit drier than I did yesterday because I think I actually didn't have enough aggregate in there. And you can see it does hold to the surface, but it's also sticky. So it's a little bit different than what you might be used to with something like concrete, because it's more like wet taffy, the consistency. So I'm gonna get to work on this, and I'm gonna set this up hopefully so you can see the action here. Let me see if I can do this without tripping on everything. All right, so let's see how this goes. All right, first of all, let me get my gloves on. And yes, I keep tripping. This stuff it's not really all that nasty. I actually had my bare hands on it yesterday, and I didn't have any reaction to it. I ended up doing that because it got so sticky on my gloves that I couldn't really work with it very well. But still, I think it's better to have some gloves on. I also learned my lesson, and I leveled things out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start. I really want something I can use to scoop with. What do I have here? Yeah, I don't have good tools for scooping, so I'm just going to use some pieces of scrap wood here. I'm going to start by putting a little bit down on, this is my slab from the other day. We'll see, hopefully this will also show how it bonds to itself. My tabletop, which you'll see here in a minute, worked out pretty well in this regard, so hopefully this will as well. Oh, and let me show you something real quick here. They talk about how you have to make sure that you keep it covered, and you'll see why. I don't know if you can see it very well now, but this corner did not get covered very well, and you can see that cracks formed. It kind of pulled up a little bit. So it's not quite the ideal of what you would want. Let me see, is that still focused where I want it to? Yeah, more or less. So this consistency is not nearly as bad as it was yesterday in terms of yesterday it was very sticky and very hard to really do much with. But I still managed to do something here. Making the world's heaviest outdoor table. Look at this. This is a chunk that I put on there yesterday, and it really, it's hard. It's supposed to be hard. one of the other things that I figured out from yesterday was that until this burlap or whatever, this jute mesh, until you get a lot of the material soaked in there, it is better if you wet it first, because otherwise it's hard to get the geopolymer to soak in. So this is a mixture of silicate and water, so it's just a dilute silicate. Better centered here. And I'm going to just start scooping this in. Actually, yesterday what I did is I just poured it in. Not easy to pour at the moment, but actually I like the consistency a lot better than yesterday. I wish I had taken some video of that. I think I miscalculated how much sand to put in to begin with, and I needed a lot more sand, ideally. I didn't end up doing a lot of the stuff by hand yesterday as well. Alright. First of all, get this all pressed into the base mold. Oh boy. I hope you can see that over there, how sticky it is. It's just really, really sticky. Like I said, it's more like working with toffee, or kind of reminded me of like when I mix epoxy putty with some kind of aggregate like sand or wood chips or something like that as well. So I stapled this jute mesh all over the wooden base to give it something to bite into. Kind of like if you were putting stucco on the wall, you would do something similar. And even then, you really kind of have to drive it in there to get it to stick in. Once it does get a bite, it stays in pretty well, but it flows like toffee. I'm not kidding when I use that analogy. conclusion is that geopolymers work great when you're molding it into a mold where you have a lot of control over what's containing it. So you start to get into stuff like this, it doesn't work as well. So using it like trying to trowel it on almost like a stucco, I think would be very challenging. If this is like stucco, it'd be a disaster. I can't imagine anybody really enjoying working with it in that way. Is going to be a very, very heavy table. It's already pretty heavy. It's interesting. I'm having a harder time today getting it to stick into the burlap and the underlying onto the underlying wood than I did yesterday. It wants to kind of peel off of it. I don't know if that's, maybe that spray and silk maybe that works. I'm not sure. You can see it's like goopy. It just wants to keep running. And obviously if I were to try to vibrate this to get air bubbles out, it would just make things worse. So I think I'm kind of done experimenting with trying to get it to trowel on, unless somebody comes up with better solutions. It's just, I mean, imagine trying to do this when you're like stuccoing a house or something. Just like plastic polymers, I'd say what is behaving a lot more like a polymer than a hydrate, which obviously is not too surprising. I expected it to, maybe be a little easier to work with. I looked at some plasticizers that could be used. The one that seemed to be most highly recommended was polycarboxyethylene or something like that, PCE. And that stuff is damned expensive, it turns out. So I don't think I really want to do that. Man, I wish my mold was ready here because I've got extra material and I'd like to do something useful with it. I'm going to pull some of this material out of here too. Although I need to make sure that this gets I suppose it's possible I still just don't have the mix quite right, and if I don't know, more aggregate, different aggregate, I don't know. What would help with this? Too much in there. So I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to mold a block that has some, I got some volcanic cinders from the landscape supply store. Not a pretty table, but that's all right. Okay, now, let me see if I can get this door open without making a mess of it. Alright, so I have here red cinders, you can see. Let me mix these in here, and then I'm going to cast them into something. Let's see how this works. And what I'm going to cast them into is this right here. Alright, now do this. Now the last part I'm going to do here is wrap this baby up. Alright. Then I'm going to vibrate this mold here. Super high tech. But it works. Look even better if I had a place to give it. I think so. think that should be enough of a wrap to work, but I'm gonna go ahead and put this in here. All right, that's a wrap for today. Let's see how these come out.